Hey there, and welcome to Comedians on Technology, People, and Drugs. I'm your host, Sam Joseph, and today we're very lucky to have comedian Matthew Alley with us. Hey, Matthew, it's really great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for sharing your time.
No, thank you for having me. I love all of those things. I love comedy. I love, I don't actually, I love two of those three things, but you can find out which one I don't like.
Oh, great teaser for the
Give
rest
one
of the
away.
episode. Fantastic,
No.
fantastic. Now, yeah, well, you're a very funny person, Matthew, and we have like they say you should speak to the audience as if there was only one listener, and I think we've only got one listener who this week I'll call George, and I'll say, George, look, it's Matthew Alley, whoa, and I know George is beside himself, like trying to understand your comedy origin story. Was it that were blind from birth, and then somebody gave you these magical comedy glasses which allowed you to see comedy wherever you went as you flew around the galaxy with Captain Jean-Luc Picard, or how did it all kick off?
I was one of the like post-pandemic comedy school babies.
Mm.
I started a bit later in life. So I'm 38 now, and I started 4 years ago. I think my anniversary is like in 2 weeks' time. And
Whee!
I I knew I always wanted to perform, and I used to do it when I was a teenager and sort of in my early 20s. And I actually started like auditioning as an actor, but I
Oh.
realized I didn't have like the resilience to deal with the rejection and all that sort of stuff. And I have been playing like competitive but club level rugby for like many, many years, and it took over my life, and I loved it so much, but I knew it was coming to an end. And then I was like, do you know what? I want to do something different. And I felt as I got older, I was like, do you know what? I think I'm ready to pursue some sort of performance thing. But it
Right.
wasn't going to be acting. I actually wanted to be a presenter. And I was like, well, I see a lot of comedians going into presenting, and I consider myself someone who's relatively funny. So why don't I try, do some comedy and see if that might be able to like veer me into presenting? But then I found out I actually love the comedy aspect of it. I would only say in the last like year or two, I've been able to call myself a comedian. Before that, I would have said I was an entertainer because I
Mm.
was always a bit of a show person more than anything. But like the joke writing part wasn't like the thing that I felt I was strongest at. But I'm really feeling like I'm a comedian now, which is good. So yeah, that's how I started. I did a course. I still like the presenting, hosting part. I do a lot of emceeing, and I do see that hopefully in my future. But that's how I started doing the comedy. I was always a fan of comedy, though. I mean, me and my twin brother, who does stand-up comedy as well, we would go to the King's Head in Crouch End from the age of like 17 because we live close by, and we would go to the New Material Night on Thursdays almost every week. And I absolutely loved comedy growing up. So it's kind of I never really thought about doing it, but then when it happened, I was like, of course I do. I love comedy.
Wow. Amazing. Wow. And so yeah, I mean that's extraordinary. I know Chris well, and hopefully we can get him on the podcast. I sort of had a thought like, oh, should we get both of you on? But you don't appear as a double act. You're both doing your own separate things with quite different styles. So I think it makes sense to speak to you individually. But that was the two of you. You say, was it from 17 years old? You were going down the King's Head, checking out the new material night, enjoying it.
Yeah, yeah. And we only went to the New Material Nights. I think it's because we had no money. So
Right.
yeah, I'm trying to think, why did we do that, not go to the pro nights? But yeah, I think just because it was cheaper. It was
Sure.
like it was for students you can get it for like a quid or £2 or something like that. And then when we were like older, it was only like, it was pennies. And we enjoyed it, we were like we'd see these acts and obviously and this is it's so funny because I don't remember thinking about what these new acts were like. But now, being a newer act, even though it's still 4 years in, there were some absolutely shocking acts. It was so bad. But then you saw these like absolute gems. You really just like you laugh so much from what these people were producing that was so different. And then you'd see a few celebrities every now and again. So we saw like Omi Jalili there once and just popped out of nowhere. So yeah, but we went there a lot. And then I'd go to like a few comedy shows and watch them. The comedy specials were a lot. I feel like they were a lot more popular when like what 20 years ago now. I don't know if you
Hmm.
think the same, but I feel like we were really watching comedy, the whole specials, um, back then, and I don't necessarily think that's the case now. It's all clips, I
Right.
guess.
Well, and I think 20 years ago, like DVDs were quite a big thing, and the comedy DVD, we were sort of consuming them, and you get DVD for Christmas, wouldn't you? And you'd watch those things. Whereas now, everything's on demand, and there's sort of clips, and yeah, it's a different. The world has changed, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And but yeah, it sounds like you're very aware of comedy from an early age, not necessarily thinking about doing it, but then you were sort of saying that you were kind of into performance. Like I mean, I'm amazing club level rugby player, amazing. But so as a young person growing up, you're aware of comedy. You mentioned that you were sort of interested in acting, but didn't decide it was not for you. But did you have any period where you were kind of regularly performing, like school shows or anything at all? Was I'm just interested, before you did that first comedy course, what sort of level of performing had you done up till that point?
So the very first time I performed like on stage as acting was when I was 14 and I was in secondary school and we did a play. And I can't remember what the play was, but I remember the feeling like I was so nervous beforehand. It was the first time I
Mm.
ever stood on stage performing. And it happens, it's so funny because it happens before rugby games now and it happens before gigs now. I'm not a hugely nervous person, but even if I do, it manifests itself in pooing and farting.
Okay.
And
Yeah, you and me, brother. Yeah, okay.
I know.
Yeah.
Listen, before a gig, I have to go at least twice, and before rugby games, it would be
I'm
like
so glad. I'm
up.
so glad to hear that. It's a yeah. So sorry. Go on. Go on.
Yeah, even if I'm not physically nervous and my heart's not going, I'll get to the venue, and then at 7 o'clock on the dot, before the show starts, I need to go for a poo, and then
Uh,
maybe another one as well.
right.
Um, and I remember actually, like before this performance in school, just before I was going on, the doors were there. I just kept on farting and farting and farting, and I think that was just like the nerves
Mm-mm.
coming out. So that was the first time, and then the sort of like local council schools were doing like an Amdram sort of situation. So I was 15 then, and they had auditions for it,
Uh-huh.
and it was a musical. And we did Guys and Dolls,
Ah.
and I auditioned for Guys and Dolls, and I didn't know at the time, but it was a singing role. It was
Oh wow.
musicals, and I was just like following what they would say. I never actually sung before,
Mm.
and then I got the lead role, and I was like, oh, turns out I can sing as well
What?
um, as like the acting. So we did Guys and Dolls, and we did that at the Sadler's Wells in London, which was like quite a big thing at the time.
Oh wow.
And I really enjoyed it. Apparently, I made someone cry because it was so bad. No,
Oh.
no, they said it was beautiful. They said, yeah, and that was like the first time I sort of had like an important, quote unquote important role. And then so I started doing amateur dramatics from then outside of school, and I did that until I was 20, probably about 2021, I would say.
Oh,
So I
okay.
was performing regularly. I would do like 2 or 3 shows a year, musicals as well as like some Shakespeare plays and stuff like that. So I was performing quite regularly then. And that's why I thought I wanted to be an actor. But I mean, I can even say it now. I wasn't a particularly good actor. I think, I never really. I, th I think I've got like a natural stage presence, and I think I'm
Mm.
a good public speaker. But I think for like acting and same as comedy, I didn't really understand or require the work that it takes and like the craft of it. I always hoped that I could just like get along with my natural charisma.
Mm.
And I think that was the case when I was younger as well, because like in school, I was always in the top set and I was always doing pretty well, but it was just something that happened. I never revised. It was kind of just kind of sort of took place, and so I just assumed that I didn't have to work particularly hard in a lot of these situations. And then I went to sixth form college and I didn't do that well. I was like, oh, actually, you need to work for things. But at the time, I just thought, well, you know what, people think I'm good on stage. Let me give it a go, and it didn't really work out. But also the no's, like, oh my God, I was fickle as fuck. People say no, and rejection was not for me. Not for me at all. So yeah, didn't work out.
Yeah, yeah, it does. I mean, we've had a few actors turned comedians on the show, and I mean, I did amateur dramatics really through school and university, but yeah, the sort of the working actor and like basically needing to be kind of continually auditioning and like basically just, I mean, it's a different mindset to be able to cope with that, endless no, is yeah, does seem, although comedy can sometimes be like there's a few no's, maybe not as much. I do feel sorry for the actors like auditioning. I mean, at least when you're going to a gig and you're, maybe there's a kind of like implicit no of like not as many people are laughing as you hoped, you're at least still actually able to perform. I don't know, it's well, I don't know, I'm confusing myself now because I'm imagining
No,
if
I think I agree.
yeah.
Like with acting, it seems like, and I auditioned for probably about a year when I
Mm,
was 21. So I
mm,
went into like, and I did actually audition for a year trying to get acting jobs and like doing all these sorts of things. And I got a few, the only jobs I got 3 jobs in that year and they were all voiceover work.
right.
But there was no sort of like performing jobs.
Mm,
But I think that like the thing I love about comedy most of all is it's both like the performance and the rehearsal. So
mm,
even if we're working on towards something, we're actually doing the performance and we're getting the feedback quite early on. My sense for like actors is like you've got to audition. If you don't get the job, then you've got like you're not working. You're not working. You're not able to get better at something or unless you're doing it
right.
yourself really. Whereas yeah, at least we get to perform really as often as we like in big cities, in London in particular. Maybe not the case everywhere else, but yeah, it is the performance and the rehearsal. We can keep working on it, and get that constant building of like your craft, as it were.
Yes, yes. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, this it may be completely random. It makes me think that, for the actor, if your mindset can be that the audition itself is I mean, there's a feedback of a kind, like just like your behavior in that room. I mean, it's almost like an audition to me, having not really been in one properly. I mean, there was a few at the university or what have you, but I never went to like a formal one like you were talking about. But it seems like a small open mic, right? It's not so completely different, right? There's a very small number of people who are perhaps, their relationship to you is unclear. You're in a small room somewhere doing if you could get into the headspace of this is my, there's another parallel with when I'm interviewing for jobs, that can be a really, difficult process of like repeated rejections and so on. And I think if you can get into this mindset, and it's much easier said than done, of this is training, like if you can totally lose the I'm doing this for some other thing. It's like these are just training reps, training reps, training reps. And that, ironically, the most recent job that I got had been after interviewing for like 18 months, and lots and lots of rejections. And I mean, I was still working while I was doing that, but I think by the time I'd got to this thing, I wasn't really thinking there were going to be a job at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? I was just totally in that zone of, okay, I'm just doing this for the reps. And I think actually sometimes that's for many things that can be helpful. But yeah, the early feedback, as you're saying, with comedy is, I think, what we love, right? That's yeah. I mean, you mentioned doing a course. Which comedy course did you do?
So I did the comedy school course, which is sort of Nick Hamden. I did that 4 years ago.
Mm,
So I said I never really thought about doing comedy, but my twin brother Christopher Ali, who does comedy as well, he's always said that he wanted to do stand-up comedy, even when we
right.
were going to those shows. He'd
Ah.
never really sort of like, I guess, pursued it, and same similar fears to me of not really chasing it and what if and what that. And I got this is when we had to isolate with COVID.
Mm.
So I got COVID. I was at this terrible job. Honestly, it was the worst job. And I don't mind saying the name. It was Popeye's Chicken. I opened the very first one in London, in Stratford, and it was quite easily the worst job I've ever had. But a very good experience for me overall in life because it
Right.
really propelled me to do this. But it was fucking dis. Can we swear? I've swore twice already.
You can say whatever you want. It's
Oh,
like
perfect.
we're yeah. I mean, no one. I mean, conceivably someone might complain, but I don't think we'll care. Use the words that you need to describe your true
Yeah.
feelings.
Well, it was just disgusting. It was absolutely disgusting, and it was
Yeah.
run by tyrants. So I got COVID 10 days before I'd booked 10 days leave of holiday over Christmas. And it
Oh.
was just by chance, right? It was honestly, because everyone at work was testing positive, and then I was really unwell, and then I tested positive. But it was like perfect timing because I'd literally had 10 days of annual leave over Christmas, and so I had 20 days of leave. And that ended really badly with the work there. But I had to go and isolate. So Christopher had his own flat. So we swapped places because I live here with my mum. And Christopher came here and stayed to look after my mum. And I went and stayed in this flat for 10 days. And it was an absolute dream. It was a holiday. Oh my God. Just no, they would come and deliver me food out the window. And I would just go and collect the food. And then I would just be there. And I was playing computer games for a week or 10 days. And I was just, I had to have Christmas Day by myself.
No.
Um, honestly, not a problem. They brought me Christmas dinner. Not a problem at all, bitch. It was so good. Oh my God. They brought dinner. I chatted to them out the window. I was like, bye, and just
Oh,
watched my
wow.
film. So good. And I wasn't that unwell. I was a bit unwell at the start, but like the
Mm,
symptoms must have went like 2 or 3 days afterwards. Like it
hmm
wasn't that bad.
hmm
Anyway, while I was there, I was like, do you know what? It's been a hard couple of years for me, which it had been, like with work and COVID and all that sort of stuff for everybody as well. But for me,
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been at work for 15 months, and I was like, I just want to do something that really scares me. So I
Mm.
said, I booked the course. I said, Christopher, I booked the course. And I told him after I'd booked it, I booked this course. I know you want to do stand-up comedy. You need to do it as well. He was like, Matthew, I feel sick. And I was like, why? And he was like, I can't believe it. I've been thinking about it for ages, but I don't want to do it because I'm scared. And I was like, no, listen. Well, I said, you don't have to do the same one as me. You can do a different one, And he's like, no, I need to do it with you. And then he booked the course straight
Oh, well, so
afterwards.
you did the same comedy course together.
Did the same comedy course, the same day. But we were like that growing up, though. So we went to the same school. We applied for the same jobs. We were inseparable up until the age of 21 until
Mm.
um, I joined this rugby club. So I joined a gay rugby club, and it was the world's first and largest gay rugby club.
Wow.
And that was like my gay awakening. I kind of like fled the house and everything I knew here, and went to find myself and found my people. And
Hmm
that we kind of had a separation then, but before that, we were like inseparable. Like we literally
Mm.
shared the same email address and phone up until that point.
Wow.
And so I think that was like a little bit of like a legacy move where we kind of did the same thing again.
Well, amazing. And then you're talking about how, through all of the different performance things, although you enjoyed performance, you were always very nervous about it. And like as even before a rugby game, which my it's a long time since I played sport, but I used to be a coach for my sons doing football, and my sons talk about the nerves before the game. But so yeah, with this thing, I guess for a lot of people, comedy is very exposing. It's the last thing that they'd want to do. They'd rather die than be put up on a stage and be told you should be funny. But I guess you were talking, you're in this situation, as many of us were after COVID, of saying, look, I just want to do something different. You said you wanted to do something that scared you, and so you sort of just Googled how can I do stand-up comedy, because it was something that you knew was scary and you kind of wanted to challenge yourself.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I would. Some people go and do open mics without doing like any practice, like a course, and I'm like, I don't know how you did that.
Right.
Like just to go and book it. Not me. That can never be me. So I looked for like local courses, and then I booked this one. And it was mostly because it was close and the day was good and stuff like that. And yeah, I was super scared. The sessions were quite interesting. They weren't easy. Getting up on stage. I'd always been comfortable on stage and speaking in
Mm.
front of people, but this was different because, as you say, like I think comedy is so exposing. Like everything about what you're presenting on stage is you, and I take things very personally. I'm a very sensitive person overall. So, and my comedy was always going to be a reflection of me. It was always going to be an enhancement of my personality. I was never going to put on a mask or be a character. It was always going to be me, but more. So it feels and felt very personal to me. So um, it was just like it was the best experience. It was when I actually watched my first gig back. I do that every now and again. I don't know if you ever
Oh yeah,
do that,
yeah,
but
yeah.
I've got my first gig, so I watched my first gig back. The only reason why I do watch it is because it went like incredibly well. Like it's one of
Mhm.
I remember watching it a year later and I was like, it's so interesting because that first gig, maybe because I had no expectations, it was exactly like some of the things that people want or expect from like a training course and stuff. But I was like, there was what after I was really thinking about it, I'd lost all the elements about that gig and what performance is, like my personality, you know, using voices, being in the moment, because I was thinking so much about my sets within the first year. I must say what I want to say and I plan to say no matter what. And I forgot that actually, like, my personality can be quite important. And in that first gig, I was just free. I was just open, and for whatever reason, it just flowed out of me. Like, I didn't skip a beat, never missed a word. It was just like it was the best. It was the best. It was the best. One of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, and still doing it 4 years later.
Brilliant, brilliant. Yeah, no, well, that's great. Great first gig. You know,
Second worst gig. I'm sorry. The second gig was diabolical.
I was going to ask, tell me all.
Oh my God. So I had this first gig and I hadn't booked any other ones. And then there was this gig. I'd seen one person on the course had booked this gig a week later and it was like an LGBT one. And then
Mm.
I was like, how'd you get that? And she said she'd messaged him. So I just messaged them as well. And they said there was a spot. So I went there and it was in this beautiful venue. Like for a second gig, it was actually a bit too much because it was about 70, 80 people
Oh
in
wow.
this beautiful pub. It wasn't like these little back end pubs that we go to,
Mm.
isn't it? Where we've got like, and I'd gone from my first gig, which was like our pass out thing, which had about 120 people, to this one, which had about 70 or 80 people. And I hope they don't mind me saying their name, but there's a comedian called Dane Buckley who'd been doing comedy only just over a year before me, but had done maybe like 200 something gigs in that first year and was an absolute powerhouse then and is now. Like he's absolutely incredible. But he went on, like the gig went and then he went on and he absolutely blew the house down. And then I wasn't after him and I bombed like something else. Like it was painful. It was so soul destroying. I was affected for days. I was like, I can't believe this happened. I left pretty much soon after that. A friend of mine came. It wasn't even a bringer because it was actually like a pro event. It was awful, so bad, so bad. I'll
Oh
never forget
dear.
that feeling.
Oh gosh. Well, you had both the high and the low within that first, immediate the first two. But I guess you'd say that second one was so painful, but it was not enough to erase the positives that you'd had in the first one. It didn't cause you to quit. You were like, okay, I've seen the high and the low, and I want to carry it. What was? Tell me about what was going through your mind as you were booking the third and the fourth.
Well, one of the reasons why I feel like I'm able to perform now is, I spoke about when I was younger and I didn't feel like I had much resilience, and that rejection was like all encompassing. And I would say, like, for me, rejection is still a massive thing. Like, I still feel it very personally. But when I was 30, when I was working, when I was like 26, 27, I started to feel what I would call, it was never diagnosed, as like really anxious feelings.
Hmm.
And in my chest, it just happened for a while. And I was having a really hard time at work. I was in a relationship and I was really struggling to express myself. And from the age of 27 to 30, it was there every single day in my chest. Like it was a visceral feeling. You know, I call it anxiety. It could be whatever it is, but whatever it was like a feeling. So once I'd basically left my job and me and my boyfriend broke up at the time, I was like, I need to sort this out. So I started having therapy when I was 30, and I still have therapy now, which I'm very open about, and because I think I wish it was available to everybody. I was really
Mm.
lucky because I found my therapist. I still have the first therapist I have now, then, now, whatever that is, yeah, and which is unusual. You know, it's like some things you have to keep trying, but
Sure.
they've been really good to me, and I've been working on dealing with rejection and resilience overall and that sort of stuff. So the time that I chose to start doing comedy, I felt like I had better tools to deal with that, and I knew I have that little bit of delusion. I do roll with a bit. I run high with my ego. It doesn't run low. So whenever I think something's not working, I try not to believe that it's my fault, even if I falter from it. I tend to believe overall that I'm capable of doing things that I would like to do.
Mm.
And that was in those situations I was like, okay, it wasn't good, but I know I can be funny. I know I'm great on stage. I'm going to pursue it. And that's kind of how I have continued so far.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I'm so glad that you did, and well done coming through that second one. Yeah, it's a funny old game, and so yeah, just like before we go on to the next question, is there? Can you describe the process that were you, initially gigging like once a week, and now it's got more, or what's your kind of like. How has the kind of the frequency with which you gig and the kind of gigs you do, how's that changed over the last 2, 3, 4 years?
It's changed a lot, to be honest with you. It's changed. I've had many different iterations. So my first gig was in March, right?
Yeah.
It was the end of March. And then I'd say from March until September that year, I was probably gigging once every 2 weeks.
Oh,
And I was like, I felt like it wasn't going particularly well. It wasn't enough. And I was like, this isn't right.
mm,
And then it got to September and I was like, okay, I'm going to give this a real go. So I started doing between like 3 and 5 a week. It's difficult in London because we have this bringer system. So I was really lucky because I'm from London. I've grown up in London, and I have this rugby club as like a network. Um, I managed to gig for the next 14 months, all
mm.
bringers, and only use a bringer swap 3 times because I just managed to have a
Right.
network of people, and I
Amazing.
hounded people. The way I booked gigs is also how I hounded my friends to come to gigs. And if they said they were bringing two of their friends, I was like, nope, you're splitting up. You're coming to this one. You're coming to this one. It was whole admin. It used to really frustrate me. I remember one gig I did, and a bringer's spot somewhere. I told my friend, and then I got there, and then he told a bunch of all of our friends, and he was like, "Surprise! There's 15 of us here," and I was like, "You've taken away 15 gigs from me."
Just spread that out. Oh my,
It was
oh my
so
goodness.
annoying, which obviously is great if they were trying to surprise me. Like, we've all come to support you. I was like, that's great. I actually need you all at individual events because they're not going to come back. Do you know what I mean? And I'm not
Right,
producing
right.
material at a rate where, I can say, oh, come this.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so I would say, May to September was one every 2 weeks. And from September, really, for a year until a year January, I was gigging anywhere between 3 and 7 times a week,
Mm,
mostly five, I would say.
right.
It was a lot. I was gigging a lot. And it felt like a lot. I was actually getting really unwell
Mm,
physically because I was still trying to go to the gym and I had a different job that I do now. I changed my job to support comedy specifically, actually. But I was getting tonsillitis every 2 months because I was
mm,
just so worn out.
mm.
Um, so, I was gigging a lot then. And then once I felt like I started to get my feet under myself and I'm doing these like 10-minute spots and not having to I'd made a decision that I'm not going to do bringers anymore.
Mm.
And that took about 3 months to sort of phase out. And then just because I wasn't doing the bringers, I was doing about three a week. And I still do that now, 3 to 4 a week. And that's like my sweet spot. I think anyone that gets into comedy, if you can try and do minimum three a week, I feel
Mm.
like that's the best to get momentum and feel like you can progress. Because any less, one gig to the next is such a big gap that you feel like you can't calibrate where you are, you know?
Yeah, there's some kind of match fitness, isn't
Yeah.
there, about you need to be doing it at a certain frequency, which is kind of yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, yeah. Well, fantastic. And so on to our second question, which is how is technology? affecting your life and your comedy. And as I always say, by technology, it could be the latest smartphone, could be the latest AI model, but it could just be, a pencil and paper. It could be, a memory technique that you use. I'm really interested in how any of the mechanisms, or organic or technical that you use to make your life and your comedy go well. Which is really, I'm sort of interested as well. How do you come up with such good jokes and such a great personality? But let's see where we go.
Um, I read technology initially as like what you might see like IT. So like, as how's the digital world affecting my comedy? And for me, like, I always call myself old, I guess, because I started a lot older than a lot of people, and I'm nearly 40 now. Um,
You did
and
look a day over
so
25, but well, that's you talk about that in your set, don't you? But
yeah, yeah. But I cannot if I social media as a technology platform is really like the bane of my existence, right? Because it's not something I feel passionate about, and I've always
Mm,
been someone who's been driven by what they want to do, not what they have to do. And because there's a sense that people will be like, you need to get a following and you need to post regularly and have this social media presence, I find it really, really difficult to pursue that because it's just not something I am interested in fundamentally.
mm,
My
mm.
social media, I like a couple of things. I like to post my arms because I've got new arms that I've been working at the gym. I like to post silly things like me wearing a face mask. And I like to try and be silly. I'm not trying to be, but not like, but when I want to, when the moment takes me, I like to do
Mm,
polls about crumpets and things like that.
mhm.
And sometimes it feels like you need to make sure you're posting your reels and you've got your comedy content, and then you're saying where you're gigging. Then you get to the gig and you say how amazing it is, even though it's not. And I'm just a bit like, yeah, you remember those people that I don't know if you see it, but I'm like, I was at that gig. Someone's like, oh, best gig ever. And I'm like, I was literally at that gig. It was not that good. Like, relax. I know you're trying to be nice, but you know, whatever. So, in terms of social media as technology, I find that really hard. Um, I use technology to do my sets now, so I'm getting better at that. So, if I've got new material, I type everything now. So I read
Oh, really?
Adam Bloom's book,
Mm,
and I've got Notepad and stuff, and I use notepads every now and again, but they don't really work for me. They work for a long term thing. I'll use them if I really just need to like almost like think about something or write down options. But I do not record my sets on paper, so I type everything out. But what I've started doing which works really well for me, is when I first started doing material, I don't record the video anymore, I record the sound.
mm.
And my phone has a dictaphone, so it transcribes it all. So then I
Ah,
create a document from that, put that on my computer, and then I listen to it as I edit it. So then I
right.
get rid of all the fluff that's just like chit chat or not noise and adapt it. And then I like put comments on it like 7 out of 10 for a laugh or big pop or
Mm.
needs this or something like that. And I'm finding that's working really well for me as like a working document. So that I really appreciate that. I'm not really a notes, handwritten notes person, to be
Mm.
honest with you. So I like the
Interesting.
digital version when it comes to that.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Well, I mean, but both those things. I mean, the one that you say about the social media is like there is a kind of. I mean, last year I was like trying to post stuff on TikTok every day, and just I kind of fell off the wagon. And this year I'm just doing it at a much lower pace. It's kind of yeah, it's sort of yeah, like the thing I want to be doing is performing, not particular. I don't mind posting the occasional photo, but yeah, definitely in your camp on that regard. The on the that's really interesting what you're doing with the recording. Is just that dictaphone? Is that have you got an iPhone and Android? What's the software that you're using there for
I'm
the
an
dict?
Android baby, yeah. I get cussed for it all the time. But
Oh yeah,
I've got a Google phone and yeah, one I was recording the voice one day and then I pressed the button next to it and I was like, oh sugar, that's right there. So I
yeah,
don't even need to write down because when I write my initial if my initial idea, like say I've never said it before and it's the first thought, I only
mm,
write the joke.
right,
So I don't write all of the setup. I tend to say that the first time.
okay,
Does that make sense? So I pretty much just write setup, punchline, but not like the preamble
right,
of the
okay,
setup.
yeah, it's like a
I
short
tend to
form.
start with the joke first and work outwards instead of the concept working in.
Got you. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do a lot of recording on the iPhone kind of like voice notes, which doesn't seem to have a. I mean, I've just been doing a thing where I transfer that onto my computer, and there's this like AI whisper thing that you can get now. That I mean, before there were like sites you could upload it and so on. But I've been yeah. I mean, I've been doing that with actually other stuff for work. Like I tend to video record my sets, and back in the first year I would then like upload them into YouTube, and YouTube would do like a half-assed job at the captions, and then I'd sort of go through correcting the captions but also then pulling out a transcript and like doing a little bit like rating the different laughs throughout that. And I kind of burnt too much time doing that back in the day, and now I've kind of, I mean, what I'm still on is I watch it and I always watch it, sorry, I record it and I watch it back, and I'm kind of like trying to lean on saying, okay, if I just do that enough, my subconscious will eventually work out which are the really funny things or not. I'm not sure if that's working. But so you spend then, yeah, that's interesting. You've got, but and so you've got these, as you say, like the transcripts that you've got worked out, and then so you maybe listen to it back, you read it back, and then will you edit that in the document and then say, right, this is how I'm going to say it next time because you've tweaked it. How does that process of evolving the material take place for you?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I can do it loads and loads. I'm not very good at like going back to existing material, but I kind of just like the next two or three or four times I'll end up tweaking it, but then it kind of just like either lives or doesn't live, really. Um, which I'm only
Right.
coming to
Go
terms
on.
right now. I just realized I actually don't go back to it that often. Kind of what stays stays and what doesn't in the early stages, and then I just come up with more jokes as opposed to trying to change the jokes that don't work originally. Um,
Right.
yeah, I never thought about that. I really need to get back to these. I really need to do that.
And is that like that? Because have you? Because some people, seem like they've been honing the same 5 or 10 for several years. Have you like? I guess there's like you've had different sets at different times, and kind of like some of these you've put down. Is the kind of is have you got like a club set now, which is sort of the greatest hits of all the things that have worked? How are you pulling it together in order to have the best impact on a given night?
I've never had different sets for different situations. In
Oh no.
fact, the set I have now is the same set I've been working on. It's been one continuous progression pretty much since I've started. Now,
Oh
there are
really?
jokes that I do not say anymore, but
Mm,
I've only ever taken out bits and put bits in. I've never said
right.
this is this set and this is that set. And so the jokes that stay are the jokes that work, and the jokes that don't work are the ones that don't stay. I'm not particularly proficient when it comes to producing material. So I've definitely, especially in the first 2 years, and I was fine with it. I was fine with that decision because I found that a lot of people, I listened to advice, and a lot of the advice that was given from experienced people was work on your set. And I don't know about you, when we first, how long have you been in comedy for?
Well, I mean, it's coming up. I'm in my fifth year now, so I mean,
Right.
only. I mean, I started probably like you started in that March. I probably started. I did my first. I had my course that I did. We had our showcase show in the December prior to that, so similar amount of time.
And they were saying, work on your sets. And I just remember people going to like our open mics that we'd go to, and then the people that we spend time with, and then they did some material one week, and then I'd go and see them next week, and it's something completely different. And I'm like,
Mm,
I'm sure that's not what they said to do.
mm,
I'm sure
mm.
they said to be doing that. Now, there was a period where I was kind of just sticking to that. And, before we start recording, I spoke about like you need to come, in my mind, it's important to make all gigs as impactful as possible, no
Right.
matter what you're doing, right? So if we're going to, I still do many open mics. And I was going to open mics doing my working material because I hadn't really thought about anything new. And it wasn't providing any value for me because I was like, I know these things work, quote unquote work, um, so I don't need to do these here. What I should be doing
Mm,
is working on new material.
yeah.
So now I'm working on material more and more often. But I would say, yeah, I was very slow at the start to creating new material. But what I did have, I had my 10 minutes, and that was what I had after 2 years, whatever. But that 10 minutes was already getting me paid work.
Mm,
So, that was good. I started getting paid work probably about 13 months into comedy, or maybe,
mm,
and it started to become quite regular from that point onwards.
mm.
Um, so I would do 10 minutes, but the 10 minutes worked, and it was people, I was starting to get something from there. Um, so yeah, and that's the same now. So I've got I did my 20-minute set, and that's the 20-minute set that works, but I'm working on new jokes at the moment. And then what will happen is those jokes will come in, and then if I'm running out of time, I just start taking out the jokes that maybe seem less impactful.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, yeah, interesting. Yes, I mean, because I certainly heard that work and polish and work and polish. And then I had this, as I've mentioned before on the podcast. I had, I did the five that I had done in the showcase at my first open mic and got no laughs whatsoever. And then my second, I managed to book like randomly a 10-minute one. So I had to come up with another five, and ended up doing those two fives back to back. And there's occasion not, I mean, still not fantastic. But that so then I was like, oh, okay, well, like from a third gig, right, I'll stick with that other five. And then actually for the first, like 8 months, I was basically doing a new five every 3 weeks or so. And I would like just going through it. And I was sort of enjoying the process of creating one thing, getting it to a certain level, and then I mean, I do sort of struggle myself with repeating the same thing over. I really enjoy, like moving on and creating new things. And obviously that's got its downside. Then there was a sort of a period of 9 months where I was like, okay, I must stick to the same thing. And I had, like a five, like dun, 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 dun. And I had that experience of, you repeat it enough times and it grows and you get little things and it improves and your timing on it or what have you. And I got that up to a level of kind of like, yeah, I was getting some good videos over that, but I got tiny bits of paid work, not very much, but I then kind of switched to, oh, I'm going to start my own night in order to have a regular thing where I'm not asking, all the time to get other people's stuff. And then as I started doing what I'm seeing, which has got a lot of riffing in it and this, that, and the other, and yeah, then it's all. I mean, now I've done a show and I've got stuff. I don't know, chaos. But that's really interesting hearing about your development of it there. I just want to connect it back to you were saying like these things the 10 that when I mean you're recording and having it transcribing, particularly say the open mics, because you might be trying out a new bit and you want to get that down on paper to then sort of like do a little bit of analysis and see does that work, where can I tweak it or whatever, but you're not necessarily committing to that new thing. That was just you were trying it out, and having the transcript is helpful for review.
Yeah, and that's why I was doing it because originally I was recording all of the videos, right? And then, but that was the aim of like posting. But I was like, well, you know, if I don't know, I my posts online weren't going particularly, they're not going viral or anything like that, and I don't have a good quality camera. And
Mm,
I was like, well, I'm not gonna, if I'm at a gig and there's four audience members and there's me and there's no the atmosphere barely translate in person, never mind in film. I'm not going to
right.
record the video for the clip's purpose. Let me just record it and listen to it back because I don't know. I still struggle with some things, which is like if a gig hasn't gone particularly well, it takes me a while to be able to watch it back. I
Mm,
can't watch it immediately. I
mm.
have to take a few days to get over it. And but I find it easier with the voice
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
I can
Mm.
do pretty much immediately. I don't need to, I find that easier somehow for some reason. Um,
No, I can see
but
that.
yeah, and then transcribing just makes that a little bit easier. Whereas the video that I was using, it doesn't do that thing.
Yeah, it doesn't
It's
offer
interesting you
that.
said about like the process because it took me so long to call myself a comedian because, and I'd say like I'm more of an entertainer because I didn't mind saying the same things. I was just happy to get a laugh.
Mm,
And I really struggled with like jokes not doing well. Like I was just really struggling with that. So I wasn't making new jokes because I was really struggling with the process of, oh, if I say something and they don't laugh, like that means I'm really bad. And
mm,
I'm much, much better, at like dealing with not laughs. Whereas the first year and a half, 2 years, like I had to get people to laugh. And so if
mm,
it meant saying the same thing that only worked, that's fine. That's all I needed. That is all I needed. I needed people to laugh. I didn't need to work on these jokes. And now, like I'm comfortable enough to say that like I can make people laugh, the majority of the time. And I'm really enjoying negatively and positively like the process of making these jokes. Like I'm coming up with new stuff all the time and it's just better every time and it's going well. If it's not going well, I'm happy to discuss it. And I've
mm.
got a writing partner now. We meet every so often to
Oh,
write,
great.
which is going really, really well. I feel like she's providing more for me than I am for her, but she says she's getting value from it, so it helps.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's great. Yeah, yeah. It's well, I'm sort of just torn there as a segue into the next question. Versus, was there another thing that I was going to say on the process of coming up with the new material? But well, no, let's move on. I mean, I'm really enjoying the conversation. And you were mentioning your writing partner there. I mean, our third question, which is sometimes answered, as we go along, is about which people have had the biggest impact on your life and comedy, and that could be like famous comedians who you've just you saw growing up, or anybody that's really influencing your comedy and your life.
Uh, if I stick to comedy first, I would say one of the biggest influences isn't even like a known stand-up comedian. It's actually a drag queen called the Vivian, who was on RuPaul's Drag Race season one and
Mm.
won, and did really well, and has sadly passed away
Oh.
since. Um, so when I'd done comedy for just over a year, and one of my friends works in television or something, and I posted on Instagram being like, "Oh, someone needs someone to audition for a Netflix YouTube video." And I didn't know anything about it, but he was like, "Matthew, like, this is like a good opportunity. Do you want to do it?" And then I had a call on the Saturday, then another call on the Sunday, then just a third call on the Sunday evening, and then they said you need to be on a Monday, right? And luckily, I wasn't working at the time, and I managed to get it. So what happened is they had someone lined up for this position, and the people of the show decided they want that, and they need to find someone sharpish, and they found me. And what it was like a promo video for sex education on Netflix, but on Netflix's YouTube channel, and we were to play a patient, and we had to improvise. So I get there, and it's these two well-known drag queens, the Vivian and Monet Exchange. And the Vivian in particular was one of the nicest people I've ever come across in my life. Like, this is a well-known drag queen. We're all there for these two people. Like everybody knows who they are. They're the stars of the show. And I just felt so warm and so welcome immediately. She learnt my name. She was just chatting away so quickly. We're all having lunch. She comes and sits with everybody having lunch. And I know it sounds weird. Like obviously they're people, but it just wasn't expected. Like it just had a big impact on me. And then
Mm.
I was like, and afterwards I'd messaged her on Instagram being like, just thank you so much. You made me feel so welcome. She responded, said, absolutely not, no worry, Matthew. Good luck with your career and all that sort of stuff. And I said to you earlier on that I can run with quite a high ego. And I do run with a little bit of a sense of entitlement. So like I can be with the rejection, the way that I get over it is being like, well, those fuckers want me and that I'm
Uh-huh.
shit and all that sort of stuff, right? And that's not a good trait. Because I always say if I did comedy when I was 21 and it went well, I would have been an absolute nightmare. They would have been telling stories about how bad I was.
Mm.
Okay, like really, really bad.
Yeah.
um, and I was like, if she could be so nice and successful
Right.
and popular, there's no reason why everybody else can't be. There's literally no reason why. Because
Mm.
she's enjoying herself, we're enjoying ourselves. It had a big impact on me. And so after that day, I was like, just be more Viv, right? Just be more Viv because that's it. So whenever I think that like, oh, my ego is going to run amok or something, then I'm just like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't have fans at the moment, and hopefully one day I do. And I just want to treat those people with
I'm
respect,
your fan,
and,
mate.
and
Come
things
on.
like that.
It's like I'm
Oh,
starting a
thank
fan
you.
club today.
No, you're trying to bang me, that's all. Hey, hola. Since these arms. Yeah, yeah. And that's really important because I started running my own nights as well. And I started running a semi-pro night. And
Mm.
we had some success at the start, but then I had a night where we had Fatia El Ghori on, and we had 10 people in, and the room could seat 70. And it was not only were they 10 people, but it was, you can have a small audience and it goes really well.
Yeah, sure.
This was a small audience that went terribly bad.
Oh dear.
I felt so sick in my stomach and felt so much shame as a promoter that I couldn't provide a night for anybody that was well. And she just said to me, like, Matthew, listen, this is what we do. We're used to this. You keep pushing on. I'm happy to be here. Um, you know, it is what it is. I understand it. This is what comedy does. And before that, I'd only been doing comedy for a year and a half. I'd go to some open mics, small ones, after doing my 10 minutes being paid £20 only yesterday, and come to an open mic and there's only three people. And I had the cheek to be like, oh, why am I here? What
Right.
am I doing?
Yeah.
And I'm like, are you? I'm like, am I actually kidding myself? Who on earth do you think I am? Right? This is like these pros who've been on television performing, coming to my shitty comedy night, telling me, well, this is what we're used to, and this is what it's going to be like. And so, really, since that point, I've been like, no, as long as I make it useful, and if I don't, that's my fault, right? So I can go to an open mic, and there's no audience and all that sort of stuff. I put quote marks, whatever it is, but at least I've made it useful in some way. And so, yeah,
Yeah.
I would say those are two things in terms of comedy that have made a big impact on me.
Oh, that's amazing. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for sharing both of those stories. It just makes me think of being at an open mic the other night where this is I think before Christmas, well, a few months ago, and I think it was just like maybe five comedians and no, there's no audience and what have you. And one person who's a up and coming comedian doing quite well was like, this is not an appropriate use of my time, and just sort of left. Which, and I mean, maybe they had other important things to do. Absolutely fine. And because the guy who was organizing was like, oh, are you going to stay? I was like, I used to perform to my couch, right? I'm in here in a room, right? I'm out in London. There's four other living bodies in the room. Let's go, because
Yeah.
I want my stage time. Well, I'm going to go off. Maybe this guy could go off and like get on somewhere else, but. Not me at the last minute. So yes, yeah, I
I
think
will
that's
say though, sorry, I mean, I think it depends on the way the nights are run. You can kind of, in my mind, it
uh,
depends on the feeling that you get because I've been to like, open mics that, I still go to open mics and where there are not many people, but I feel like you can get a sense of the person is running it is like passionate and trying to run a night and all that sort of stuff and putting effort in. But like I went to one, it's the only time I've ever walked away
oh
without
yeah,
performing. And I
yes,
did an open mic and we got there and there was no MC. It was just a person introducing people paper there. And then in
right,
the middle of it, they had a Tesco delivery come right through the stage, although there was no stage.
yeah,
And then the people behind the bar were just making loads of noise. And it was just like this terrible environment. There was no
mm,
audience members. And
yes,
so the break happened and I was like, I actually said to them, I'm just going to leave. And they were like, okay, they know what's up. They know they don't care about the night. And I was just a bit like, that's the only time I ever left. And the traitor was on, and I need to get back. And I was like, thank God. So I think maybe depending on how it's run for the individuals,
yeah. I know. I mean, everybody's got to make that call, and then we're just solidarity. I mean, there was one gig that I walked away from, which was I don't know if it's still going, but there was like they called it American style open
no,
mic. I don't know if you did that one in
no,
London.
that's when you sign up on a Monday.
That's yeah, and like there was, and I kind of got there, and I got my name down like as person like 41 or something on the list, and like they basically it was sort of like starting I don't know like eight, and basically and I was there kind of set up for the first, and I watched the first seven or eight acts. And I just was like, okay, I'm not going to get to perform until like 1 a.m. and I'm going to
No,
lose. I was just like, no, no. So that's the only one I
that's not
walked
an
out.
ego thing. That's practical.
Yeah, yeah. I think, yeah, it's
You're a man of a certain age. You need to get to bed, bitch.
well, this is my New Year's resolution I think it makes all the difference. If you can get enough sleep, a lot of other things really do fall into place. Yeah, well, two brilliant shout outs there to it was Davivian you said, and I missed the
Fatia El Gori. So she's just about to go on tour, actually. Her first ever tour.
Woohoo.
So I don't know
Yeah,
why I'm shouting her out, but yeah. But to be fair,
yeah,
she's done another one of my gigs, and she's been an absolute dream. So
yeah,
there's just some people you meet that really do impact you. And I would say,
yeah.
and it's mostly women actually. I would say this. Well, the Vivian, if you want to call her a woman, but Fatia El Gori and Rosie Jones have been like the people that have really had a massive influence on like how I approach comedy.
Oh, brilliant. Yes. Well, and do tell us more about Rosie Jones and about people from outside comedy who've had just an impact on your life. I'm really interested to hear.
I don't know, like Rosie Jones is just a really nice person. I remember the first time I did a gig with her, she came over and gave me a big hug, and I was like, "Do I know you?" I was literally like, because I kind of felt like I knew her because I made, and this is like early on. It was actually my very first paid gig. I
Mm.
got a whole £14.
Ooh.
And listen, that was the best £14 I'd ever made. It was the first time I ever paid for a gig. The gig
Ooh.
went really well. I was really happy. But yeah, I got to the gig and she gave me a big hug, and I was like, and in my head I was like, "Hi," but I couldn't place where I knew her from, which is so crazy because everyone was like, "You're gigging with Rosie Jones," and I was like, "I don't know who that is," and I didn't. And uh, she was so nice. Did a gig, and then she like waived her fee so that it was split between all the other acts.
Oh wow.
You know, I've seen her, met her a couple of times at gigs, and I don't know, she's just unbelievably nice. It's just people that are just unnecessarily nice, like without being like overbearing or it doesn't feel forced. It just feels like they just really enjoy comedy, being around the people.
Why,
That
why
really
can't
do.
everybody be like that? No, but that is, I think, like you say, for people who are in a position of celebrity where we're kind of used to the idea that they're like they don't have any time for us, when they are going out of their way to be nice, it does have a big impact, doesn't it?
I think so for me in particular, and it's interesting to say why can't everybody not be nice, but I've never really considered myself a particularly nice person.
Mm.
I'm not an overly nice, and I think people confuse like my bubbly personality or my warm like demeanor as like somehow
Mm.
welcoming or nice. But
Yeah.
I'm a bitch. And I can be really cutting, and especially in my 20s, I'm an absolute tyrant. But this is before like therapy, and I had like inner anger, and didn't know how to communicate and all that sort of stuff. So it's definitely much nicer now, and I'm starting to learn and feel that I can be a nice person. But I wouldn't say it's my natural state, right? So
Mm.
I struggle to make like I guess like meaningful connections in comedy when it comes to like friendships because I don't really, I say hello and I do well at comedy gigs and people are happy to see me there because I'm a safe pair of hands. But once my gig is done, I'm gone. I'm not staying for a drink. I need to go sleep. I need to get to bed is what I
Sleeping.
need to do. Okay. So, and I've got my friends, the rugby club. Like I've had these friends for so long. Like I really, really struggle. So it's kind of like I'm not trying to be nice, but I just need to remember to I don't know be an active participant in both the performance element of comedy, but also the culture and the element of it. But it would be lovely if everybody was nice. But I would honestly say people have been much nicer than I expected overall. Like I think people in comedy have been really, really welcoming and nice, and
Mm.
experienced people really like opened their arms to me and offered great advice. So I really enjoyed that. I'm trying to think of someone outside of comedy, and it's so like overdone. But the only person I can think about is my mum. She's had a big impact on my life. We've had our struggles in life. When I came out, it was quite hard, and our
Mm.
relationship was very strong. But I live with my mum now, and I will now for the foreseeable future. We have got a great relationship. She's shown me what it is to be like strong, and I don't know how. I work in a children's nursery now, so that's what I did. I changed my job so that hours are better for comedy, and
Mm.
it's not as I work on reception. I don't work with the children. Ugh. Um, so I'm not, so I'm not tired all the time and I can focus on my comedy. And the parents there, life's different now, obviously, than it is then. But my mum was raising four boys by herself, all within a 5 year range, because she's got me and my twin brother, my older brother, my younger brother, all very close in age. And I think I've had a great life. I think I've got a great life. I think that, the privilege to be able to perform comedy at this age and enjoy my life is only down to her.
Mm.
Um, and now she's kind of nearing the end of her life, I guess. She got really unwell a few years ago. She's not dying now, but
Mm.
she
Mm.
got really unwell a few years ago and almost died. And so I just think that when I'm thinking about my life and like comedy and stuff, she's got such a big story to tell and the things I've been through pale in comparison. And it's not about comparing and all that sort of stuff, but actually what we're doing ultimately is just fun. It's a privilege
Yeah.
to be able to do it. It really, really is. Like I get to use my evenings as I see fit. I get to go and put myself on stage. I don't have to do it, but I choose to do it because I love it. Even if it is 2 hours drive somewhere to then get unpaid and then come back, I'm like, I love it. But it's a
Uh,
privilege. It's a
right.
fundamental privilege because I don't have to worry about these children or my bills or all these sorts of things. And that's all provided by my mum. So I would say she has been a big inspiration. Now, she a bitch. I got that from her. I just had to put that there. She is a monster. Okay. But she's a lovable one as well.
Yeah. Mum knows best.
She does.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Oh, lovely. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. Yeah. Well, thanks so much for sharing all this. This is, I also can't necessarily stick around after gigs as much as I would like. But this is why I love, doing the podcast is getting a bit of a longer chance to talk to people and hear about, the stories from their life and so on. As I say, it's a privilege to be able to do the comedy. It's a privilege to be able to hear more about people's lives. Brilliant, brilliant. On to our fourth question, then. So drugs. How do they affect your perception of reality? And the caveat is that by drugs, I mean any substances. And of course, that people's minds immediately go to like illegal substances. But we've had lots of people on the podcast. We've had who have we had? Kian Darcy talking about his relationship with vaping. We've had Callum McKenzie talking about with caffeine. We've had Andy Zapp talking about heroin in the 60s. We've had all Sagnon Park talking about and Willem Mahler talking about their obsession with fast food. There's all sorts of things that kind of in the category of drugs or substances. I'm really interested in what, if anything, rings your bell, what you avoid, and if it's changing the way you look at the world.
I mean, I'm a gay man who lives in London, okay? So I've enjoyed myself in some ways.
I'm sure.
Still do. Okay. But I would say like I'm a single man who doesn't have any children, and so I quite like to just do. I'm able to do whatever I want to do whenever I want to do it within reason, I would say.
Mm, mm, mm.
So I still like to go out and party, and I still like to spend time with my friends and go to festivals and stuff like that. And when I enjoy myself, I would definitely say like um, they make me they make things a lot harder afterwards. Like it's kind of like a short-term gain for like a long-term, like you pay for whatever you're doing to your body. So
Mm,
like in the inverse of that, like I've been on like my health, fitness and weight loss journey over the past few years and I managed to do it without taking sort of any injections and stuff, which has been really
mm,
good because it's fallen off. But I've got these routines of like managing my food and managing how I eat. So I
mm,
know what my body feels like when it's at its best and it makes me much happier and it means that I'm able to deal with the resilience elements that I've been talking about earlier on.
mm,
If I Comparison is like the worst thing that I have. I'd say it's the worst thing I have about my comedy, right? I really compare myself to others,
mm,
and it puts me in a really negative headspace when I really think about why don't I have this and why don't I have that.
mm.
When I'm looking after my body and when I'm taking care of it, I feel like those things affect me a lot less, and I'm able to contextualize that and talk about the things we're saying now, which is enjoy it and make the most of it. But when I have had a big night out and not slept very well, and taken whatever and drank whatever, I find that I'm much more anxious, and that I find I'm only having negative self-talk in those situations, and I should have this, and then I'm taking the joy out of the comedy that I love so
Mm.
much. So I would say that like and I do enjoy it, and it's not something I'm going to change necessarily now, um, because I'm trying to figure out the best way to balance my comedy life with my regular life and all that sort of stuff.
Mm.
But it definitely it makes things a lot harder when it terms of recovery and thinking about what is real and what's not, because I'll make up scenarios in my mind about not getting a particular, a
Right,
no or something. I apply for like a lot of these bursaries or, like competitions and stuff like that. And
right,
then
right.
I didn't have many gigs in January, but I had a really heavy December of like enjoying myself in Christmas parties. And so over like New Year's and January, I was just like, I'm obviously not funny. Obviously, no one
Uh,
wants me anymore. Has something happened? And it's just like,
mm.
I don't know why I'm putting this into my brain.
Yeah, interesting, interesting. Yeah, I think it's really interesting the way that you're connecting that, like, with the kinds of feelings and thoughts that, might come up, the more negative ones, if you're not taking care of yourself. Yeah, that, I mean, we could talk more about the comparing to others. Yeah, and of course, don't go into any details that you're not, don't want to share in terms of like the substances. But I guess, that whole there's a whole class of things that we can take for fun, that give you, like you say, a sort of short-term high, but you're paying for it the next day.
Mm.
And yeah, so it sounds like you're in the process of getting it under balance. Is that, I mean, some people, I think, as comedians, perhaps we all have slightly addictive personalities. We're addicted to the stage high that we get, and from the laughter and so on. Are these substances, are there stuff that you've struggled with over the, it's like, or is it more like, you've had fun, but it's never really got completely out of control. You're able to, like, I mean, it's certainly now it sounds like you're in a sort of a managing mode, and then you've got it under control. Um, yeah, which I think is where I've been for, like, so for example, for me with alcohol. I mean, I kind of largely gave it up for like 3.5 years, because just over COVID I was like, oh no, this. But I always felt, over the years, although there was a fair amount of that sort of binge drinking, I didn't feel like I was completely unmanned by it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I sort of felt like I had it under control. But I don't know. Where do you feel in terms of the level of control you have over your desire to have a substance, or the frequency with which you're drinking coffee? I mean, I really had struggled to give up drinking coffee before, but
I don't. I mean, I wouldn't say that I've got like in terms of like party drugs and stuff like that. I don't think I've it's got a hold of me at all. Like I'm
mm,
quite. I don't know. I've set myself like these like weird like boundaries and stuff for certain
mm,
things, and then I kind of just stick to them. So um, I'll have my periods where I'm like, okay, this is going to be the period that I'm going to party. So it's the summer,
mm.
and then outside of that, like September to November, I'm like that's health period, and then January to
Oh,
April's
really?
health period again, and it kind of just sticks that. Plus, I was quite late to taking them, so like I didn't have anything. The first time I had MDMA was when I was 21. It was like Glastonbury, not 21. Sorry, it was in 2021. I was
Oh, yeah.
34,
Mm,
and even enough that it was very much us that, and that was one of the best days of my life. The first time being in Glastonbury, the first time taking MDMA was just mwah, chef's kiss. It was beautiful. But no, I personally wouldn't say that. But what I have been doing is because I guess I'm quote unquote new to it in a way, I've been seeing what I feel comfortable with.
Hmm.
So it's about how do I balance that because I don't want it to affect my comedy so much. So like
Yeah.
when, I had a very busy summer last summer, shall we say,
Mm.
and I was like, that's not the right amount that I would like to go
It
out and
was
enjoy
too
myself.
busy. It was too busy.
Yeah, it was too busy. It was too much. I didn't feel well afterwards.
Mm.
And as soon as September hit, I went back into my normal routine of food prep, consistent gym, completely sober from uh, drinking drugs,
Mm.
and within a week, I felt like happy-go-lucky, bouncing off the walls, Matthew again.
Mm.
It doesn't really affect my comedy itself. Like I feel like I get good, I do well at my gigs regardless, but how I
Mm.
feel about things is always a bit of a challenge. Coffee, that has to be my one true vice.
Oh, really?
It's the only thing I think is what smokers must feel like because I
Mm.
feel like in my body I've got like this plug and it's not unplugged until I've had a coffee. And I always have coffee in the morning. I
Mm.
only really like it in the morning anyway. And I only need 2 to 3 cups, really 2 cups to be honest with you. It's not like I drink coffee all day, but I'm just constantly physically aware that I've not had coffee until I've had it. And
Mm.
so it would be very rare for me to not have a coffee. Like, and I'm a bit of a coffee snob. Like, I will choose not to have coffee than have instant coffee. It
Right.
has to be really bad for me to want to have that. But I carry coffee everywhere with me.
Right.
So I've got like, if I'm going away for 2 days, I'll have grains or I'll find out where the coffee
Yes.
shop is. But that would be like the only thing that I would say that the only thing that had a hold on me was food.
Right.
I was always so overweight my entire life,
Oh,
and I
really?
couldn't deal with hunger. Like, if I didn't know when my next meal was coming, I'd be like, I just could not focus. So if I was going on a date
Mm.
with a guy, I'd have to be like, are we eating or are we not eating? And if we're eating, when are we eating? Because I can't be hungry. And if I've got a gig, I'd have food with me all the time. And it makes it easy now. I carry food with me everywhere
Yeah.
as part of my food prep to make sure that I don't make poor choices and I don't go hungry. And then at least it's not big portions. But food, yeah, I would say food and coffee are the things that I have to get a grip on.
Mm.
But party drugs, at the moment, fine with.
Well, no, that I mean that's it sounds like I mean, with like saying with these health periods that you're able to sort of like switch mode, and you're not when you switch mode desperate. Because I think some people are just they're so dependent that it kind
Oh
of
my
like
God.
even with the best intentions they sort of slide back in, which was a little bit with me with the alcohol and the coffee, which is why I had this sort of like 3.5 year break from both of them, and I'm now like allowing myself to gradually have some things, and I think that's kind of going okay. I mean, I totally hear on the food. Like I have to snack regularly. I have to I need that. I cope very badly if it's like particularly now actually if it was my time to have the food and I haven't had the food, there is going to be we're going to sort this out.
Oh,
It's yeah.
it's so awful. I'm like, when am I eating? Where's my food? I need food now.
Yeah, no, I can't. Oh, yeah, but then sometimes if it's taking too long in the restaurant, I will get up and go out and get something else. You also mentioned you're comparing to others, which is interesting. It actually just happened like last. I mean, I do find I struggle with a bit of a social media addiction. I mean, I think I've got it under some control in that I basically don't scroll and I don't allow myself to look at anything on the phone until after breakfast or I've been failing recently in terms of like, well, I'm sort of constantly checking instant messenger. I'm just like, I've turned off all the notifications, but I just pretty much, every, half an hour, I'm like, okay, there are any messages. And one of the things I find is like on, Instagram, you can't check the messages without it kind of like showing you a couple of things in the process of trying to check the messages. And so like, just before I was going to bed last night, I, was like, oh, might be messaging on Instagram, looked and there weren't any messages, but there was like someone who's a great comic who's really come on in the last couple of years, winning like a gong show thing and doing all credit to him, but it was sort of like at that moment just before going to bed, like it's the comparison thing, right? You kind of like, "Ugh," and it's like it's difficult, isn't it? Because there's people that and you think that this is I mean, I'm like, part of my rational mind is saying like this person is great and they're brilliant, they deserve it, and I'm like, but another part of me is like this green-eyed monster going, I want that, give it to me, my precious. I don't know, like you're saying you find the comparing to others is something that happens particularly when you haven't been looking after yourself.
I mean, I do it all the time, and it's so interesting you say like just before you go to bed. It's really frustrating when I do it. It just pops up just before I go to bed or just as I wake up. So I don't go on Instagram now when I wake up.
Mm.
That's for certain.
Yeah.
I do not. I used to be like, my alarm set for 6 so I can go to the gym, and I'd wake up, do that Instagram just like out of habit.
Right.
I had to eliminate that because like I cannot go onto it. I've actually got an app blocking app that prevents me from doing it now, and then it also it's set until 4 p.m. now. So for the most part, I'm able to avoid it. I'm not always strict with it, but for the most part, I don't go on it until 4 because I had it in my mind. I'm like, if and emails as well. Like I was like, if I don't check my emails or Instagram, I'm gonna miss like an opportunity.
Yeah,
I kept on saying
definitely.
that to myself. But then when I blocked it, and then I check Instagram later, and someone's like, "Can you do this gig?" The gig was still available an hour later. Like it was not a problem,
Mm.
and it
Mm.
means that I'm able to manage that a bit better. And my job is very boring, so like all I could do is sit there and like scroll. So that really helped. But overall, I do really compare myself to others, in particular to ones that I put myself in the same bracket at, which is maybe like time spent or gay or black or a similar style, which is I don't do well with that. And I mean I don't think I've overcome it. I can't say I've made maybe I have been made much ground. I don't know. I'm starting to believe that there are many different opportunities for different people,
Right, right.
and but I think what helps is which is maybe not a healthy thing, but like we do a comedians basketball game on the weekends,
Oh
right?
yeah.
And I organized that, and I did a winter like festival, a winter like social, so we played a longer game and we did that. And I never really clocked it, but like a bunch of them were like, I was explaining what I'm saying to you now. Like, I just want these opportunities. I feel like I'm not progressing or as fast as I
Mm.
should do. And they're like,
Mm.
that's weird because like we think that about you. Like, it looks like you're doing these big gigs and you're doing well. And, because I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I was like, I guess when you say it like that, like we're all comparing ourselves to someone else and someone else is doing something we wish we had. So that helps that actually that, like I'm
Mm.
doing well in some aspects. And, there are different opportunities overall, but it's still, I would say it's one of my biggest battles overall, like but it always coincides. I went out the weekend before last, so then had bad sleep on Sunday, then saw a post on Tuesday, and I was like, that got me fucked up.
Yeah.
Like I was like, oh no, I lost my mind for 2 days, Tuesday, Thursday. Anxiety was rife. Oh my God. And friends, I exercise. I was like, bitch, I exercise Monday, twice on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It has not shifted. Like,
Uh,
no, it's just me. I need to sort it out. So,
it's tricky, isn't it?
I don't have like advice for it. I get advice for it, but I think in some way it'll be a part of me for a while, and it's something that I just need to manage. The good thing is me and my brother were talking about comedy recently, and he wasn't speaking about me specifically, but he's like, some people feel like they might be a bit entitled to things, and I was like, that really resonates with the feelings I get. Like, I never really understood what is it that I think that I'm missing, or what is it that's happening in my body, and when he said like some people feel entitled, I was like, I think that word accurately describes me. For
Mm.
some reason, because I think I'm doing well, I'm entitled to these. Why does that person have it when I don't, when I should
Mm.
have that because of that? And I was like, I think that that is, in for me, an accurate way to describe how I'm feeling, and also something that I can then work on because I'm like, I'm not entitled to this. I don't deserve this opportunity over someone else or as well as them. I deserve the opportunities that are for me.
Right.
That one, that's their opportunity. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think so. Yes, yes. I mean, you're saying that you know, it might superficially it might feel like, oh, that's a thing that I want, but actually maybe that's not the right opportunity for you. There are other right opportunities for you that you'll get, and quite possibly other people will then be jealous and be comparing yourself to you. But it's funny. We're all in our kind of own little thing, aren't we? And
Mm,
uh, I guess it's this. I often say, everybody has privileged access to their own pain. Like I think independently of whether it's comedy or anything else, we're sort of we're very, very immediately aware of how things are affecting us inside, and we look at other people, and we're not plugged into their nervous systems, right? We can't, and superficially from the outside at a veneer, everybody else looks kind of confident and happy, or at least we can kind of project onto them, oh yeah, they seem to be doing it. And of course we can end up focusing on, we're not focusing on the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of open mic comedians who maybe are not really, nothing special has happened because of the way that, the algorithms of the Facebook, whatever, we're being presented with, oh, here's the one thing. And it's kind of actually not representative of the whole thing. It's a weird, it's a weird place in which we live, isn't it?
It really is. Like a big example of it is the person that I write with, right? So we've been friends since we started comedy, and they started maybe like 4 months after me. They got signed by, and there's a similar style and demographic that we have, right?
Mm,
But they got signed by Off the Curb agency very early on, one of the biggest agencies in the country, a year into comedy, pretty much.
mm, mm.
And been doing comedy ever since then. And so they're posting about, these great tour supports and things like that. And this is someone I'm friends with, but I'm still
Yeah,
like, ah, they've gotten so far, they're doing all of that. And then we met up recently and they were talking about the struggles that they had and how hard it's been for them. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, how is that possible? You're literally performing at the biggest stages in the country with quite literally the biggest comedians of this generation. But
mm,
we all have our own struggles. We all have those feelings. She's like, yeah, that's fine, but we've been doing comedy for the same amount of time. Imagine me being in that situation there. Like, I feel like I don't deserve to be there. Their struggle's
right.
different, but still, like, it's such a big gulf, and um, so you never know what's happening on the inside with people because everything else could always seem better to everybody else, and as and inside you still have to go through your own demons and battle, and
Right, right. Yeah, no, I mean, I think we would all love to get more and greater opportunities, but with the greater opportunities come greater pressure. Like you say, and the anxiety of going through that and how you feel through that, and it's yeah, yeah. I mean, I find myself with kind of like, rather than a sense of, I think maybe there was a sense of entitlement for it, like what, it's not fair. Why don't I get some of that? I think now it's kind of like, because I think there are some people who start and they find a voice and they find a niche, or they get some, like they're in the right place at the right time, and they get, a bit of acceleration, and you sort of see that, and it's like, oh wow, I wish I had a bit of acceleration, but it's sort of me now where I'm kind of like, I wish I could have progressed. It turns into a kind of, okay, I need to work harder, which can be an unfortunate feeling. It's like, oh, I've put in all this time, but I've only got this far. But I think, as I was saying in some post on Facebook recently, it's like, I think, and this is, I think, just paraphrasing Stuart Goldsmith, whose great podcast I, I emulate here, is that any time that you're like saying, I didn't get this or that or this person, it's a signal to say, write more jokes, work harder. It's like nothing is going to change anything apart from, you know, getting back and doing your best. And well, I think also to come back to, what was it I think you said at the beginning, but about enjoying. I think if you're not like, if you're doing this like, okay, right, like, you're treating it like a military exercise to get to some goal down the road. That's not what it's about, right? It's about having fun. So, if you're not enjoying it, it's I don't know. Maybe there's some comedy Nazis out there who can make us laugh in the wrong way. Anyway, I think I'll move on there sharply, because I was just like losing mental coherence. Onto our last question, which is about, it's the big question, which you can treat as the big question, or you can treat it as the kind of like, what does life mean to me? But it's like, I'm always thinking, what does it all mean? This, is it a dream in the mind of God? Is it a simulation? Is it something even more weird? Like, what is this life, this universe, this everything? And people have criticized and said, oh, how can you ask this question when there's so many important things in the world? You know, you can't, like, if you've got some insight into what all of this means, I'd love to hear it. But if not, I'm very interested in what gives you meaning and what gets you up out of bed in the morning every day.
Yeah, there is a big question because I think it's for me it's very hard to like quantify because of the things I said earlier on about like being in a specific position, Privilege was like a big word that came up over like the last few years, in it, especially when they talk about like white privilege, for example. But
Hmm.
I think like people in my position, I don't have a lot of money. I don't, I'm not wealthy, but I feel privileged because I get to do what I want. I really don't have many barriers. And again, this is within reason. I'm talking about, like I'm able to. I think about it. I'll be at work, and my friends will be like, "Should we book a holiday?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, let's do that." And then that day we could book a holiday and I don't have to consult anybody, right? Within reason. I have to let work know. But with this kind of job that I've got now, honestly, I could book it whenever I want to. I don't even need
Mm,
to really
mm,
ask.
mm,
That's what it
mm.
is. I'd let my mum know, but I'm not asking her permission. I'm not asking for anybody for money. All I'm doing is I'm just doing what I want when I want to do it. And for me, that's great. But I understand that obviously loads of people are not in that position because their lives are just very, very different. So I think that the meaning of the life is to find a meaning, right? And to try and make the most of that, whatever that looks like. Because we spoke about just a moment ago about like comparing yourself to others and
Mm.
being in certain positions, but you could be famous and wealthy and find life absolutely draining and be miserable, right? You can find it to be the worst thing ever, right? Despite like, my ups and downs, when I'm not sleeping and all this sort of stuff and comedy woes me, but I'm living the best part of my life right now. I believe that, right? I believe that wholeheartedly because um, I get to my best days are when I get to go to the gym, then I go to work, then I eat the food that I've prepared, then I go to the gig, that goes well, and then I go home. And then throw in a boy or two there, that would be great. There are days when I've gone to the gym, gone to work, had sex, had a gig, gone home, and that's just mwah.
Oh, there you go.
Ah,
Top.
you honestly, I'm like the day could not be any better,
Yeah. Well,
right?
we could get a t-shirt made. It'd be gym, work, sex, eat, gig, repeat.
I might do that because I made a t-shirt, right, that said, "How do I juggle comedy, friends, and boys?" Because I was like, because I said that the text to my friend, and he was like, "You should get that on a t-shirt." Because I was like, "That's my life." Because I'm single, but I like to date, and I want to be in a relationship now. I didn't want to for a while, but now I do. But like relationships with men is like the last of my priorities, right? I will always put all of the other things I said first. Like
Oh, really?
if I have to, I won't go out because I need to wake up early to go to the gym because
Mm.
the exercise. I was never one of those people that were like, oh God, I must go to the gym. Like it's just whatever. But now, like I noticed, like if I don't go exercise in the morning, my day is just that bit harder. I've
Mm.
noticed that, especially
Hmm.
because I've got like a tyrant boss. She's not even a tyrant; she's a terrible boss, and I just cannot deal with her if I have not exercised. And I don't normally exercise on a Wednesday
Mm.
morning. And if she's there on a Wednesday morning, I'm like, this is actually the worst day ever. So
Mm. Mm.
that's one of those things. And then obviously work is the only thing that I kind of have to do to make money, and that's fine. And the comedy is number one. Like that is all things revolve around comedy and my gigs. So then I have to, and then I have my personal plans and my friends because I do have a very full personal life. Like I
Mm.
always have things booked in. I'm always going to see shows. I'm always going out and doing things. Where are the boys going to fit in? So I take them to dates. I take my dates to gigs a lot.
Right. Well, you
I
gotta have
don't
a
even need
bringer.
a
You
bringer.
gotta
I
have a
don't even
bringer.
need a bringer anymore. Don't even need it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, you're bringing them for the, it's for the love of the game.
Yeah. Well, I'm like, this is the only opportunity you can get to see me.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, I'll come to that then.
You're multitasking. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, yeah. Well, I was just thinking we've got two potential t-shirts there. There's one would be gym, work, sex, eat, gig, repeat, and
You
then
got that written down, right? Because I
I,
actually want to do that.
yeah, no, I've got that written down.
Thank
And
you.
the other one you're saying is like, how do I juggle friends, comedy, and boys? And then on the back it could say really big hands.
Really big insert.
Or really big, just like dot dot dot.
I like that. That's
Brilliant,
good.
brilliant. Nice one. Oh, it's time to get some t-shirts made. Well, Matthew, it's been an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for sharing, so many heartwarming stories and the meaning of life there. I'm sure our one listener, who I believe I called George this week. I hope your name is George. Um, was it Greg? I'm not sure. Sorry. Is desperate to know where can they see more of you on the socials or in real life or whereabouts? Where should they go if people want to check out your comedy?
The best place is to go. I've just got Instagram, so it's all teeth and chips, but it's spelled at all underscore teeth underscore and underscore chips. There I post different things. So I run a couple of my own gigs, which you can come to. Actually, you say that me and my brother don't normally do things together. We're actually doing our very first split bill and
Oh
going to a
wow,
few shows in London, in Brighton, and around the
brilliant,
local areas. So we're going to do that for the first time. So that'd be exciting. So look
wonderful.
out for that. But apart from that, just try and follow me on social medias as much as you can. And any picture you see of my arms in, please comment and tell me how big they are because it just makes me that much more happy.
Brilliant, brilliant. Oh, fantastic. And you're going to be in, oh, well, I'm going to be in Brighton as well. Hopefully, we can overlap. I would love to see you and your brother doing do a split bill. That'd be
It's our first
fantastic.
time. We've done gigs together, but we've never done a show together. And we've spoken
Yeah.
about it a little bit over the years, but we're kind of both happy now because our relationship's always a bit of a funny one, being a twin.
Hmm.
And it definitely feels like the right time to do it. And we want to include some sort of twin element into it. So we're trying to figure that out at the moment.
Brilliant, brilliant, fantastic. And I can't help but asking the all teeth and chips. What does that refer to? Is that you're a big fan of eating chips with your teeth, or how does it what does that
I
come
don't
from?
know. It was before I started comedy, and I was just got Instagram. I was quite late to Instagram as well, to be honest with you. And it was supposed to be like all teeth and tits because I got like, my teeth are probably like one of my top features. Well, not probably, definitely is.
I was noticing they are extremely white and very. I
Yeah,
mean, I was like, wow, this guy is. I mean, the Americans would be shocked to find a British man with such good teeth, but
really are. And I've never had braces or anything. I didn't go to the dentist from the age of 10 to 25. Um, it's just one of those things.
great
So
genes.
yeah. So I
Yeah.
thought teeth, and then chips was because I was always fat, and I was like, well, instead of teeth and tits, it was like teeth
Uh,
and chips eating food. But I did a poll on Instagram being like, do I need to change this? And it came out fat 50-50. And I was like, that's unhelpful. So I haven't changed it, and I won't change it until I get an agent and they say I must.
there you go. There you go. You heard it here first. Fantastic. Well, thanks everyone. And remember, you can help support comedians on technology, people, and drugs by going to our Facebook group and commenting or asking questions there, or on Spotify. And please do follow us on Spotify. Apparently, that makes all the difference with the algorithm. You can comment or ask questions there. We'd love to hear your thoughts, and we look forward to being in your ears again real soon. Last word to our fantastic guest, Matthew Alley.
George, if you want to be happy, just do some comedy, bitch.